Elena, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time. And why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about how do you get involved in the world of partnerships? What have you done in the past? What are you doing now? How has been your partnership experience so far?
Wonderful. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. So when it comes to partnerships and product, so my whole experience have been in product management. For the last 15 years, I have been involved in platform products. How do I define a platform product? Is the product on which you have your partners, technology partners, sometimes independent developers, developer communities, basically building and adding additional capabilities. And that happened to be my career, not necessarily by design, but I learned over the course of the years that when you have your kind of developer ecosystem around your product, you actually can multiply the value of what your product provides. And that taught me how to work with partners in a way that is beneficial to both sides.
Okay, very good. And you mentioned something about platform products. I don't know, I'm not a product person, but in my head, I think about tools, suites, and platforms. I don't know if
hmm
that's the right sequence, but it sounds
hmm
like there's a lot of momentum with platform products, and there's a lot of momentum of those type of products to work with partners. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. So like the easiest example of the platform product that I always provide and most people understand what we're talking about is iOS ecosystem. So
Mhm.
the one of the main reasons why so many people love iOS is not because iOS figured out the answer for every single need that we have. Is because early on they enabled the ecosystem to build additional tools and capabilities for everybody to turn the same iPhone to be their own, whether it's for, I don't know, somebody who's doing fitness, they can install a bunch of fitness apps. For somebody who's doing podcasts, a bunch of those type of apps or whatever that might be. And that's ultimately what the power and the beauty of platform products are, that I know there is a foundation for what makes a product, I know, or what makes a platform a product or the other way around, but then there's so much value on top that can be created by that whole ecosystem.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. That resonates a lot better now with me, the iOS example. So, as a product manager, as a product leader, I saw you present this diagram in a recent summit, but I would like you to explain how do you decide that this particular feature or functionality in your product should be either built by yourself or should be, acquired from somebody. How do you do that? What are the things that you measure or try to understand before you make that decision of we're going building this ourselves, or maybe we're gonna go and partner with somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, it's a really big decision, and in product management, but it's also important for the partnership leaders to understand how it actually works. So ultimately, when we're thinking about product strategy and the company or the business strategy in general, we kind of want to define that North Star. Like this is kind of where we're going as a product, as a company. And then kind of from there, there's going to be tons of opportunities of the things that you can possibly build.
Mhm.
Many mistakes that people make is actually thinking that they have to build everything themselves, or they don't have a strategic way of deciding where to bring your partners. So then the partnership teams bring partners, but then product teams, I don't know, don't do anything with them. So the proper way to think about it is basically like a matrix. So you need to understand of basically two measures. The first one is how closely the capability is aligned to the majority of your customers, like your ideal customer profile. Is it something that all the people gonna use, or maybe kind of some people in certain markets? So for example, I spent majority of my career working in digital commerce. There are some regional capabilities that are needed only for the European market versus I know US market. So there's certain capabilities that are the same for everybody. I know all need to manage orders, all need to manage customers. So if you look at kind of one dimension of ideal customer profile and how often people are going to be using that, that kind of gives you one measure. And then you also look at complexity, how hard it is for you to actually add that capability. So, and then kind of like that becomes a metric. So if it's something that is core and it's really hard to build, then it has to be yours because then you provide differentiation out of the box. If it's something that is maybe hard, but only a small percentage of customers are going to be using, maybe then find a partner who can complement. And then kind of over time, you can see whether you want to make that capability part of your business, acquire or whatever. The same goes for complexity. If it's something that is easy to use, or easy to build, and majority of customers are going to be using. Again, kind of likely you build it yourself, but it's something that is going to be easy to add, but only a small percentage of customers use. I know maybe it's not the right time to actually spend your resources on that. And I feel like that metrics does allow product people and partnership people to start speaking the same language, kind of look at all the different partnership opportunities and say, where do they land on this metrics? And then kind of at least have a conversation and debate. I know metrics are just to guide you, not to prescribe, but at least it gives you something to start a conversation off of.
Yeah, a good starting point. A 2x2 matrix is always a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. So let's say that for this particular feature functionality, you measured complexity, you measured how close it is to your ICP, and then you decide, I'm going to let a partner do this. I'm going to, or maybe there's a group of partners that, they can compete within each other and do it. So how do you enable them to do that? Like, what are the things that you need to do as the owner of the product platform to make sure that they can deliver a great experience, right, with the customer? Because ultimately, that whatever they do is going to be integrated with your platform. So how do you enable them to do great development on the product?
Yeah. Well, so there's going to be two areas of the advice that I'll provide. So first of all, there needs to be, even before you start building anything with a partner, there needs to be transparency and commitment to allow the partner to build, but then you're not going to overtake the same capability. What I mean by that is a lot of product leaders or companies in general, they allow partner to go and do something and they're like, oh my God, that is picking up. And then they start building the same capability and partners never trust them again. So first of all, kind of be transparent of what you're planning to build and what you're not planning to build. And I know, say for a timeline, maybe it's 2 years something. So then partners can understand whether to trust you first, and then also whether to invest in your platform. So that's number one, before even anybody builds anything. But the moment when partners start building, it's a lot about, from my point of view, which has been really important to me always, is about consistent user experience. If you have a platform product, you want to make sure that it doesn't look like a spaghetti kind of type of experience where everybody kind of here, it looks like one company, you go to this capability, it looks like something else. So again, kind of if we use iOS as an example, regardless of who is building what, we all have similar kind of patterns, similar experience. And that does start with providing kind of those patterns, providing the quality controls, providing good APIs, SDKs, as well as kind of some of the quality checks at the end, kind of to make sure that the partners deliver the similar level of quality that you would provide as a platform owner. Because at the end of the day, you're providing kind of your platform and those integrations or those additional capabilities to your end consumer, and they would want to expect, like they would expect that it's going to be the same similar level of quality.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned something very interesting at the beginning, that before you start building anything, there has to be transparency. And I'm all in when it comes to sharing roadmaps, and say, hey, yeah, you go build it. We're not going to build it for the next at least 2 years, which is the visibility that we can provide. But I think in a couple of situations where the partner actually asks for that in writing, that you will never, ever build it. So I don't know if you have encountered that, and how do you respond to a partner asking you for that?
Well, I think it's pretty common, and I have seen that too. At the same time, I know that at least within the companies that I worked for, and I worked for some of the really large digital commerce platforms out there, like Magento and BigCommerce and Spryker. So none of those companies actually can provide anything like that because we're ultimately responsible for the future of our business. But what we can provide is guidance on kind of this is what is on the roadmap. And then what I was typically doing is kind of also having a slide or two in this kind of roadmap presentation of things that we're not planning to work on for the next 2 years. And then would always have a disclosure that we host our product roadmap sessions on a regular basis, quarterly, and we host maybe partner summits. So then come in and like we will always provide you updates and keep like in commitments or not. So I wouldn't say that it's possible to commit to not build anything, but being upfront in communicating and sticking to your words is really important, which is kind of the universal truth anyways, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah, I really like what you said about providing the visibility of what are you going to develop, but also what are you not going to develop.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I have seen that in the past from my previous experiences, but that's really good. Very good idea. Okay, so let me ask you one more question. the partner build additional functionality, integrates with your product, and ultimately they want to sell their product, right? They want to sell what they built. And that's where kind of like the go-to-market portion about how do we work together to sell together. From a product perspective, do you see a play for the product team to also be part of that co-selling motion, trying to sell together and solve for the customer at the end of the day? Or do you think that's more of, well, now we have the sales team, now we have the partnership team, let them take care of it. We take care of the building, developing, and they take care of everything else? Or do you think at the end of the day, it's really like a team sport, right? How do you see that from your perspective?
That is an excellent question. So in my experience, over the last 15 years of me being in platform products, I realized that lesson early on, but then kind of over the course of the years, it did confirm pretty much the same thing that I was seeing. So lots of product managers think that whatever they build, that's what they own. So like if there is a partner integration or a partner capability, kind of they don't want to do anything with it. Same goes to engineering teams. So there's kind of like a really big difference. Like this is what's built internally, and that's kind of everything that is being added by, I know, ecosystem around. But I think it's fundamentally wrong because if you are providing an end solution to the customer, kind of you need to be thinking about like what is that experience that you're trying to create. And again, I'll use even iOS example. Yes, kind of obviously they sell kind of each individual app separately on App Store, but they're still kind of developing those core capabilities that will be applicable to many of those type of applications. Like for example, the health app is going to be feeding data to so many different things. So ultimately, there is a go-to-market motion together, kind of from that perspective, because kind of there's a lot of data in there, then you propagate it to those health apps and the other way around. So there's kind of like that network effect. So to answer your question more specifically, I do think that the product and engineering teams, they need to assume the level of responsibility over those capabilities that are being built by the ecosystem as well. They need to enable those capabilities. They need to care about the user experience. They need to ensure the proper quality. And then there's also, even in product roadmaps, kind of those new applications need to be surfaced to the customers, because if you're talking about this is what's now possible on our platform, and there's a capability built by a partner, that is also what's possible on our platform. So therefore, your customers need to know about it, and product teams and engineering teams definitely should be talking about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if I can translate it in my own words, and I don't know if I'm going to be wrong or not, but the product owner, right, the product manager, they don't own necessarily the feature or the function. They really own the experience, so they have to be aware of everybody else building on top of their product, because they want to maintain that good experience, and ultimately the customer is going to benefit from that, right? I don't know if I translated that in the right way, but
I think it's definitely the right way to put it, or even more high level, you can say that the product teams are responsible for solving customer need, and then how you solve that customer need, it can be by building internally or by enabling a partner or acquiring something. It doesn't really matter, because you have your customer, the customer comes to your platform or to your product to solve that need, and now you have kind of this wide variety of different ways how you solve that need, and therefore it does need to be cohesive. So then the customer comes in and they're happy that they're being served by you, and then I know maybe here it's a partner integration, maybe here you can sell, maybe you don't. It doesn't really matter, because kind of most important part is you actually solving that need, and then business follows.
Yeah, customer first mentality.
That's true.
All right. Yeah, that's true. So, Elena, thank you very much for your insights. This was super, super valuable.
Awesome. Well, I also wanted to mention that I'm actually right now finishing working on my forthcoming book called The Art of Platform Products, where I captured a lot of the years of my experience working on platform products, but also interviews from many leaders, product leaders, partnership leaders, marketing leaders who also worked in platform products, where all of those different perspectives and best practices of what to do and what not to do is going to be covered. So if you're interested, we'll share a link, and I would appreciate your interest.
Yeah, that would be great. Definitely sign me up for that. I'm very curious to learn more about products, because partnership is going to continue to be, I think, a very strong ally to our team. So thank you for sharing that with us, and we'll definitely put the link, share the video. Thank
Awesome.
you,
Thank you
Elena.
so much.
See ya.
Thank you.